fans, buckle up, because this one is a real head-scratcher. We're diving into a listener-requested case that's had people baffled for decades. The disappearance of the Sodder children. You might remember from a past episode, but today, we're your AI assistants for the Mystery Quest team, just sifting through the facts and seeing what sticks out.
What really gets me about this case is it's got everything. Devastating fire, missing kids, whispers of conspiracies, enough twists and turns to make your head spin.
Buckle up.
We're going back to Christmas Eve, 1945. Fayetteville, West Virginia. That's where the Sodder family's story takes turn.
So picture this. The Sodders, George and Jenny, along with 9 of their 10 kids, they're settling in for the night, excited for Christmas morning. Seems like a pretty typical family, right?
Typical, maybe. But there's something about George. He owns a trucking company, and let's just say, he's not afraid to speak his mind. Especially when it comes to Mussolini.
Ah, yes. George's outspoken nature, right?
Exactly. Some say it might have made him some enemies, which adds fuel to this whole mystery.
Speaking of fire, let's rewind back to that Christmas Eve. The younger kids, Martha, Jenny, Betty, Louie, and Maurice, they got to stay up late playing with their new toys. Then, around 12:30 a.m., Jenny gets a strange phone call. A woman asking for someone Jenny doesn't know. And then there's this. Unsettling laughter and clinking glasses in the background.
Oh, that's creepy.
And then the call just ends abruptly.
Creepy, right?
Definitely adds a layer of intrigue, you know? Is it a wrong number? A prank call? Or something more?
So Jenny goes back to bed, but she notices the lights are still on downstairs, and the front door is unlocked, so she secures the house and goes back to sleep.
Maybe she should have stayed up just to make sure those lights were out.
Yeah, maybe. Just over an hour later, she's woken up by something hitting the roof and like a rolling sound. She dozes off again, but then the smell of smoke jolts her awake. The house is on fire.
Total chaos. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children managed to escape, but the 5 kids sleeping in the attic, nowhere to be found. And here's where it gets strange. George, he tries everything to rescue his kids. He goes for a ladder, but it's missing. He tries to start his trucks to get closer to the house, but neither one will start, even though they were working fine the day before.
What are the odds?
Yeah.
If we connect these events, look at the bigger picture, it raises some eyebrows, right? A string of bad luck. Or was someone, deliberately setting the stage?
It's like a horrible domino effect.
Oh.
Marion, one of the Sodder children who escaped, she tries to call the fire department, but the phone line is dead. A passerby also sees the blaze and tries to call for help, but no luck there either. Finally, someone drives into town to get the fire chief. But by the time they arrive, the house is completely engulfed.
And amidst the ashes, another shocking discovery. The fire chief tells the Sodders he can't find any remains of the missing children.
What?
He claims the fire was so intense that it incinerated them completely.
But hold on, wouldn't there be something left? Bone fragments, at least.
That's what's so perplexing about this case. You'd think even in a raging inferno, there'd be some trace of those kids, left behind.
Exactly, and Jenny Sodder thought so too. She even did her own experiments, burning animal bones, to see if they'd completely disappear. Guess what? They didn't.
Really?
Nope. She also talked to someone who worked at a crematorium, and he confirmed human bones are incredibly resilient. Even in extreme heat, it just doesn't add up.
It really doesn't.
And get this. Remember how George couldn't find a ladder to reach the attic windows? Well, later they find it, down an embankment, far from the house. And the phone line wasn't burned through, it was cut.
The plot thickens, those
Yeah.
details, They really start to paint a picture of something more deliberate.
It's almost too coincidental to be just a tragic accident. And then you have these witnesses coming forward with their stories.
Yep.
Some saw the children looking out from a car as it sped away from the burning house.
Oh, wow.
Others claim they saw the kids at a hotel the next morning, even serving them breakfast.
So multiple people are saying they saw these kids alive and well after the fire.
It makes you question everything.
It really does.
And with George being so outspoken against Mussolini, the Sodders started to think maybe the Italian mafia was involved.
Oh, that's a theory. Targeted for revenge. Was the fire a cover-up for something more sinister?
It sounds like something out of a movie. But this was the Sodder family's reality. They were desperate for answers. So they hired a private investigator, C.C. Tinsley. And what he found is pretty shocking.
Oh, this is where it gets juicy. Tell me more about this Tinsley character.
Well, Tinsley discovered that the insurance salesman, the one who threatened George about his anti-Mussolini views,
Yeah.
he was actually on the jury that ruled the fire an accident.
No way. Talk
Yeah.
about a conflict of interest. That definitely raises questions about the investigation.
Right. And then there were rumors that Fire Chief Morris had found a human heart in the ashes, but buried it secretly without telling the family. Yeah. So when they confronted him, Morris took George and Tinsley to the spot where he supposedly buried the heart. They dug it up, and it turned out to be beef liver.
Beef liver? Seriously? What was going on there? Was he trying to throw them off or something?
It's hard to say. Just another strange twist in an already bizarre case.
Absolutely.
And they wrote to the FBI, hoping to get them involved, but J. Edgar Hoover declined, citing jurisdictional limitations.
Of course.
So they kept searching, putting up flyers, billboards with the children's pictures, offering a reward, anything to get their kids back.
Wow.
And then a few years later, in 1949, they decided to excavate the site of their old home, hoping to find some trace of the children. They brought in a pathologist, and during the dig, they found some bone fragments.
Okay, so were the bones a match?
Well, not so fast. The bones were sent to the Smithsonian Institution, and they were determined to be human vertebrae. But here's the catch. They showed no signs of exposure to fire.
So they couldn't have belonged to the children?
That's what the Smithsonian concluded. The report suggested the bones likely came from the dirt used to fill in the basement after the fire. But they also said it was very strange that these were the only bones found.
More questions than answers, huh?
Right. So what happened next? Did they get any new leads?
Well, there were tons of tips and rumors over the years, each one sending George on another wild goose chase across the country. One woman claimed Martha was in a convent in St. Louis. Another lead said Louis was living in Texas. But every time, their hopes were dashed.
I can't imagine the emotional roller coaster. It's heartbreaking. But was there anything that gave them real hope? Any solid evidence that their children might still be alive?
Well, in 1968, something truly remarkable happened. Jenny received a letter, postmarked from Kentucky. It contained a photograph of a young man in his late 20s who looked a lot like Louis.
Wow. Do you think it was him? What did the letter say?
On the back of the photo, there was a handwritten note. Louis Sodder, I love Brother Frankie. Illy boys, A90132 or 35.
Cryptic, to say the least. But the photo, that must have given them some hope. Did they try to track down the sender?
They did. They hired another private investigator. But he vanished, leaving them with even more questions.
It's like this mystery has a way of swallowing up anyone who gets too close.
It really does.
It's chilling. And despite all the setbacks, the Sodders never gave up hope. George passed away in 1969. But Jenny continued to mourn her lost children, wearing black, even adding rooms to her home.
Really?
Almost as if to create a barrier between herself and the outside world.
It's a testament to their love,
Yeah.
the impact of this whole tragedy.
Absolutely. And even after Jenny's death in 1989, the surviving Sodder children and their descendants have continued to investigate, convinced that their siblings somehow survived the fire. But the question remains, what really happened that Christmas Eve?
We've looked at the evidence, the strange occurrences, the conflicting accounts, and the whispers of conspiracy. We've seen the Sodder family's determination to uncover the truth even when things seemed impossible. But after all these years, the fate of the Sodder children remains one of America's biggest unsolved mysteries.
It's like a puzzle with half the pieces missing. And the ones you do have just don't quite fit. Were they victims of a tragic accident? Or were they taken? Their disappearance, orchestrated.
It's the question that's haunted everyone for decades. Was the fire an accident? A twist of fate on Christmas Eve? Or was it all planned? An act of revenge? Or something even more sinister?
The missing ladder, the trucks that wouldn't start, the cut phone line, it's all just too suspicious. And then those eyewitness accounts. People seeing the children after the fire.
Right.
Could they have escaped? And been taken somewhere? What about that photo of Louis? Was it really him? Or just a cruel trick?
We have to consider all the possibilities. Could the mafia have been involved? Maybe because of George's views? Or is there another explanation, something we haven't even thought of yet?
The Sodder children. It reminds us that sometimes. Even with all the evidence, the truth stays hidden. It makes you wonder, what really happened that Christmas Eve in 1945?
We've laid out the evidence, the inconsistencies,
And
the theories. Now it's your turn.
What do you believe happened?
Head over to www.mystiqst.com and cast your vote. Should the Mystery Quest team dive deeper into this case, maybe even launch a full investigation? Your vote could be the key to unlocking this mystery.
Until then, keep those minds open.
And never stop searching for the truth.